The stars burned cold and distant, scattered like diamonds across endless black. For most travelers, the galaxy was a place of fear and power struggles, where mighty empires clashed over territory and resources. For Captain Elias Ward, a human, scout pilot, it was simply another long night in his small, outdated ship. Humanity was still young in space. Barely a century had passed since Earth launched its first colony ships, and compared to the great alien civilizations, humans were still considered children playing among giants. The galaxy's elders expected humanity to stay quiet, keep to their small colonies, and not interfere in the greater wars. But fate had other plans. Elias's ship, the Vigilant, drifted near the outer edge of a sector known as the Crimson Divide, a stretch of space where two ancient empires fought bitterly. Official human orders were clear: avoid the divide at all costs. Yet Elias had chosen to scout along its edge. He told himself it was curiosity, but in truth he was restless. Humans weren't meant to just sit and watch history pass by. That was when the distress beacon came, a weak, broken signal cut through the static. It wasn't human. The voice was trembling, speaking in an alien dialect his translator struggled to process. He caught fragments. Royal ship. Attacked. Survivors. Need help! Elias's heart hammered. He should have ignored it. Entering the divide meant risking not only his life, but the fragile neutrality of his people. Yet, the desperation in that voice pulled at him. He thought of Earth, of how, if humans were lost and crying for help, no one would come. He tightened, his grip on the controls. "Hang on," he muttered to himself. "Whoever you are, you're not dying alone tonight." The Vigilant plunged into the divide. Wreckage filled the void. Massive cruisers floated lifeless, their hulls torn apart by energy fire. Glowing fragments of once proud warships drifted silently, like tombstones. Elias pushed through the graveyard, following the signal until he found it, a shattered royal cruiser lodged against an asteroid. Fires burned inside its torn hull, venting sparks into space. Elias docked his ship and armed himself with a rifle, though he doubted it would matter if he met hostile aliens. He entered the ruined vessel cautiously, moving through smoke-filled corridors. Bodies of armored soldiers lay scattered, their weapons useless in death. He forced himself not to look too long. Then he heard it, a soft cough, followed by a weak voice. Turning a corner, he froze. There, surrounded by wounded attendants, was an alien unlike any he had seen before. Her skin shimmered faintly with pale silver light, her hair flowing like strands of molten gold. Her eyes, large, luminous, and filled with pain, met his. Even without knowing her species, Elias recognized something important in the way the others bowed their heads toward her. She was not just anyone. She was royalty. "You're human," one of the injured guards whispered in disbelief. "Impossible." Elias knelt beside the princess, ignoring the stares. "I picked up your signal. My name's Elias. I'm getting you out of here." The princess's gaze held his, as if measuring the truth of his words. Her lips trembled, but she spoke with surprising strength. "I am Kalira, heir to the Lumerian Dominion. If you stay, you will die. Leave us." Elias shook his head firmly. "Not happening. Where I come from, we don't abandon people in burning ships." The guards exchanged alarmed looks. To them, his words were madness. But Kalira's expression softened, a spark of wonder flickering in her eyes. With quick hands, Elias helped the wounded onto stretchers and guided them back to his small ship. His Vigilant wasn't meant for royalty or soldiers, but he packed them in anyway. Every trip back to the wreck, he expected an enemy patrol to appear, but luck, or something greater, seemed to guide him. Finally, only Kalira remained. She was too weak to walk unaided. Elias lifted her carefully, carrying her through the smoke. She was light, almost fragile, but he felt the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. "You risk your life for me," she whispered as he carried her. "Why?" He gave her a tired grin. "Because you asked for help. That's enough." Her eyes widened at the simplicity of his answer. No politics, no reward, just a human choosing to act. By the time the Vigilant pulled away from the wreckage, enemy ships were already arriving in the sector. Elias pushed his engines to the limit, slipping into dark hyperspace just before detection. Inside the cramped cabin, the survivors lay in silence, staring at the human who had defied reason to save them. The guards whispered among themselves, calling him reckless, perhaps even dangerous. But Kalyra did not look away. She studied him, this human who treated her not as a princess, but as someone worth saving for her own sake. For the first time in her life, she felt a bond that had nothing to do with bloodlines or thrones, and though neither of them knew it yet, the choice Elias made that night would shake the galaxy to its core. For in the endless dark, a human had saved an alien princess, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Vigilant sailed quietly through hyperspace, its old engines humming like tired lungs. Inside the cramped ship, silence filled the cabin. The rescued Lumerians, Kalyra and her attendants, rested on thin cots, their eyes never straying far. From the human who piloted the vessel, Captain Elias Ward didn't look like a savior. His uniform was simple, a little worn at the edges, and his ship was nothing compared to the vast cruisers of the Dominion. Yet he moved with steady confidence, adjusting controls with one hand and sipping recycled water with the other, as if saving alien royalty was just another day's work. Kalyra studied him quietly. The human was unlike any being she had met in her life. Most who approached her spoke in rehearsed tones, bowing deeply, terrified of offending royal blood. Elias had not bowed once. He had not even called her princess after hearing her name. To him, she was simply Kalyra. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. "You did not ask my rank when you carried me. You did not ask for reward or promise. Why?" Elias glanced over his shoulder, his brown eyes calm. "Because you were hurt. Where I come from, you help someone if you can. Doesn't matter who they are." Her silver eyes lingered on him, trying to understand. "Among my people, one's worth is tied to status, power, and heritage. No stranger risks their life for another without reason." "Well," Elias said with a faint smile, "maybe humans are strange." The answer made her laugh, a quiet, surprised sound. It was the first time she had laughed since her ship was destroyed. Days passed as the Vigilant carried them through hidden routes, avoiding patrols and pirate signals. Space was vast, but danger lurked everywhere. More than once, Elias used clever tricks, powering down his ship to mimic debris or sliding through asteroid belts to mask his signal. The guards whispered uneasily at his methods. To them, humans were reckless children. Yet somehow this child kept outsmarting enemies who had ruled the stars for centuries. During quiet hours, Elias and Kalyra spoke more. He told her of Earth, of oceans that stretched farther than sight, of forests older than kingdoms, of cities that glowed at night like clusters of stars. He described laughter around fires, the stubborn hope of explorers, and the way humans always found a way forward, even when odds seemed impossible. Kalyra listened with growing fascination. "Your world, it sounds alive, so free. My palace is filled with walls and rules. From birth I was told whom I must speak to, how I must stand, what I must say. But you," she tilted her head, "you live as if each moment belongs to you, not to tradition." Elias shrugged. "We're not perfect, but on Earth we value choice, even if it's messy. The idea struck her like a blade of light. Choice. Freedom. These were words often whispered by rebels and dreamers in her dominion, but hearing them from a man who acted on them so naturally made her chest tighten. Not everyone was pleased. One night, as Kalira tried to rest, she overheard her chief guard whispering to another, "This human is dangerous. He defies orders, risks galactic stability, and treats her with no respect. If word spreads that our princess was saved by such a creature, the council will not forgive." Kalira's heart clenched. The guard's words carried truth. Her people were proud, and the idea of royalty depending on a human would be seen as weakness, perhaps even shameful. But when she looked across the cabin at Elias, sleeping lightly in his chair with his boots still on, she did not see weakness. She saw strength unlike any she had known, strength that did not come from fleets or titles, but from will. The journey was not without peril. On the 5th day, a pair of raider ships intercepted them, demanding surrender. Elias muttered something under his breath and threw the Vigilant into maneuvers so wild that even the Lumerians gasped. The ship groaned, sparks flew, but somehow he threaded them through a collapsing asteroid field. The raiders, larger and slower, were crushed by falling rocks. When the danger passed, Kalira gripped the chair to steady herself, her breath quick. "You fight with chaos," she said. Elias smirked. "We call it improvisation." For the first time, she understood why some whispers in the galaxy called humans unpredictable. It was not just recklessness, it was creativity born from survival. That evening, as the stars outside streaked by in long rivers of light, Kalira approached. Him. She stood close, her silver glow faint in the dim cabin. "You risked your life again today, though you owe us nothing. Do you not fear the cost?" Elias leaned back, folding his arms. "Of course I fear it, but fear doesn't mean stop. If I can help, I help. That's all." Her chest ached with something unfamiliar. She had seen countless warriors pledge their lives to her family, but none had spoken with such simplicity, with such honesty. Kalira whispered, almost to herself, "Among my people, courage is measured by victory, but you measure it by kindness." Elias gave her a puzzled look, then shrugged. "Guess that's one way to put it." In that small ship, far from the grand palaces of her dominion, Kalira felt more alive than she ever had before. No bowing, no politics, no walls. Just a human who treated her as a person, not a crown. And though she tried to hide it, something new began to stir in her heart. Something dangerous, something that, if spoken aloud, could ignite storms across the galaxy. But for now, she kept it silent. For now, she simply watched Elias pilot the ship with steady hands, the strange human who had turned her world upside down. And in the quiet hum of the Vigilant, the bond between them grew stronger with every passing star. The galaxy was never silent. Words traveled faster than ships, carried on encrypted channels, trade routes, and whispered in smoky spaceport halls. And now those words carried a story. The Lumerian princess had been saved by a human. No one knew the details. Some claimed he was a soldier, others said a mercenary, and a few insisted he was a pirate who stumbled into fortune. But the whispers spread like fire. For most aliens, humans were newcomers, reckless children in the galaxy. To hear that one had saved royalty shook the order of things. Inside the cramped Vigilant, Elias had no idea of the storm his actions had unleashed. Kalira sat in the co-pilot's chair, her silver gaze fixed on the glowing star lines of hyperspace. Her attendants had healed enough to move about, though tension lingered among them. Her chief guard, Serac, still watched Elias with suspicion, muttering that the human was unpredictable and dangerous. But Kalira saw something else. She saw the way Elias scanned sensors every few minutes, the way he kept his ship patched together, with clever tricks and steady hands. He had no fleet, no noble title, no political safety net, only grit. And yet, against assassins and raiders, he had kept her alive. "Your people?" she asked him one evening. "Do they know what you have done?" Elias shook his head, adjusting a panel. "Command doesn't even know I'm here. If they did, I'd probably be court-martialed. My orders were to avoid this region." "Then why defy them?" she pressed. "Because you needed help," Elias said simply. "Orders don't matter if you're watching someone die." His words, plain and unpolished, struck her harder than any poem sung in her palace. Unknown to them, others had begun hunting. Far, across the divide, a council of rival nobles gathered. The Dominion had enemies in every shadow, and news of Kalira's survival was not welcomed. If she returned alive, she might shift alliances, expose betrayal, or, worse, speak of humans as protectors. To powerful houses, that was unacceptable. So, they sent killers. The assassins came silently in a black vessel, tracking the faint trails of the vigilant. Cloaked, armed, and ruthless, they carried only one order: silence the princess before she could reach safe space. The attack came suddenly. Elias was running a diagnostic when alarms blared. The ship shook violently, metal groaning under a sudden strike. Lights flickered. Kalira grabbed the edge of her seat as the vigilant spun sideways. "Who is it?" she gasped. Elias's hands flew across controls. "Not raiders. Too precise. Someone doesn't want you making it home." A second blast ripped into the hull and warning sirens screamed. The assassins didn't waste words. They wanted blood. Elias snapped orders. "Everyone strap in. This is going to be rough." He threw the ship into a dive, weaving through debris fields left by old battles. Plasma fire lit the dark, chasing them. The assassins flew a faster ship, but Elias fought like a man who refused to lose. He spun through wreckage, skimmed asteroid edges, and at one point even flipped the Vigilant on its side to slip through a gap no sane pilot would attempt. Inside, Kalira felt her heart pound with every impossible move. The guards shouted prayers to old gods, but Elias stayed calm, eyes locked forward. Finally, he snapped a lever and shouted, "Hold on!" The Vigilant plunged into a dense magnetic storm, lightning-like arcs of energy slashing across space. The assassin ship followed but soon crackled, systems frying under the strain. With one last burst, it exploded in the storm's heart, leaving silence. Elias exhaled slowly. His forehead was damp with sweat, but his voice was steady. "That buys us some time." After the battle, the survivors whispered in awe. The guards, once doubtful, now watched him with grudging respect. Kalira approached him quietly. "You risked death again. You had no reason to. Why keep fighting for me?" Elias leaned against the console, tired but resolute. "Because someone out there decided your life doesn't matter. I don't agree with that. And until we get you somewhere safe, they'll have to go through me first." Her throat tightened. No courtier, no knight of her dominion had ever spoken so directly. It was not duty, it was choice, and that made it priceless. Meanwhile, in shadowed cantinas and on encrypted channels, the whispers grew. The story of a human protecting a princess spread wider. Some mocked it, calling humans reckless fools. Others grew curious. Who were these humans who acted not for politics but for honor? On one smuggler's broadcast, a voice laughed, "If one human can outfly assassins and keep a princess alive, maybe the rest of them aren't so weak after all." The galaxy listened, and the galaxy wondered. That night aboard the Vigilant, Kalira could not sleep. She found herself watching Elias as he worked, patching scorched panels with makeshift tools. He hummed quietly, an Earth tune she did not know. Finally, she spoke. "Elias, if we survive this, the galaxy will not forget. They will speak of you. He glanced at her with a half-smile. Let them talk. I didn't do it for them. Her heart raced at the honesty in his words. Something unshakable was forming between them, something stronger than fear or duty. She could feel it, though she dared not name it yet. But she knew one truth. The galaxy's whispers had only begun, and when the truth of her bond with this human came to light, those whispers would turn into a storm that no empire could control. Word count. 953 words. The Vigilant drifted in silence, hidden in the shadow of a barren moon. Its patched hull still bore scars from the last battle. Inside, the air was tense but calm. The princess and her guards finally had a moment to breathe. Elias sat at the controls, eyes heavy from exhaustion. He had spent hours rerouting power and sealing damaged conduits. Now, with the engines cooling, he leaned back, watching the dark horizon outside the viewport. Kalira stood behind him, her silver glow faint in the dim cabin. She studied the human quietly, her mind swirling with thoughts she could no longer ignore. He had saved her not once, but many times. He had faced assassins, raiders, and storms, not for glory or reward, but simply because it was the right thing to do. Each act chipped away at the walls she had carried all her life. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft but steady. Elias, do you ever regret it? He glanced back. Regret what? Saving me, she said. Defying your orders, risking your life, carrying the burden of someone who was never meant to be your responsibility. Elias shook his head without hesitation. No, I'd do it again. 1,000 times. Her heart clenched. She had expected hesitation or at least a weary confession of cost. Instead, he gave her the same honesty that had drawn her from the start. Kalira walked closer, her golden hair catching the faint light. Among my people, no one would speak so. Duty is always tied to gain. Protection comes with expectation. But you... She paused, searching for words. You protect me because you choose to, not because you must. Do you realize how rare that is? Elias gave her a tired smile. Maybe. But to me, it's just normal. You needed someone. I was there. Her breath caught. For days, she had carried the weight of feelings she dared not name. But here, in the quiet of this forgotten moon, the walls inside her finally broke. I fear my own people, Elias, she admitted. The council may see me as a threat. They may wish me gone because I carry knowledge of their betrayal. But more than that, her voice trembled. They will never forgive me for what I now carry in my heart. He frowned, studying her. What do you mean? Her silver eyes locked on his, glowing faintly in the dark. I mean that I have come to love you, Elias Ward of Earth. The words hung in the air, heavy and unshakable. Elias froze. For a moment, he thought he had misheard. Kalira. I tried to resist it, she whispered, her hands trembling slightly. I told myself it was foolish, dangerous, but I cannot deny it anymore. You saved me, not as a princess, not as a symbol, but as a person. You saw me when no one else ever did. And now... She drew a shaky breath. Now my heart belongs to you. Elias's chest tightened. He had faced assassins without fear. But this left him speechless. Kalira. Before he could answer, a faint crackle filled the cabin. Unknown to them, a damaged transmitter in the Vigilant had activated during their repairs. It had been left half-functional after the last battle, and now it flickered to life, carrying signals into the void. Kalira's words, spoken with trembling honesty, were already leaving the ship. Broadcast across frequencies she did not know existed. The galaxy was listening. Far away, in smoky bars and noble halls, the message spilled out. I have come to love you, Elias Ward of Earth. Shocked faces turned toward each other. Some scoffed, calling it a fabrication. Others leaned forward, whispering in disbelief. An alien princess declaring love for a human? Such a thing was unthinkable. On warships, commanders froze mid-order. On trade routes, merchants paused their work. Across worlds, billions of ears caught the words, and whispers erupted into storms. For some, it was scandal. For others, it was inspiration. Back on the Vigilant, Elias finally found his voice. Kyalira. He said softly, "You don't understand what this could mean. If your people know, they will rage," she finished, her chin lifting with sudden strength. "They will call it betrayal. They will call it weakness. But I will not deny it, Elias. Not to them, not to anyone. The galaxy may mock me, hate me, or even exile me, but I will not lie about my heart." Elias stared at her, torn between fear for her safety and admiration for her courage. "You don't make things easy, do you?" She gave a faint smile. "Neither do you." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, two souls from worlds apart, bound by something stronger than politics or power. Meanwhile, the transmission spread further. Nobles shouted in anger, demanding action. Councils argued, furiously, fearing what this meant for the balance of power. Yet among ordinary people, something different stirred. If a human could win the heart of a princess, perhaps humans were not the fragile newcomers everyone believed. And among the young, soldiers, workers, and dreamers, the story burned brightest. They saw courage, honesty, and love that ignored boundaries of species and empire. To them, it was not scandal. It was hope. Back in the quiet of the Vigilant, Elias finally leaned forward, his voice low. "Kyalira, whatever comes, you won't face it alone. You saved me too in your own way. I didn't know how much I needed someone to remind me why I fight. And now, I guess we're both in this together." Kyalira's eyes softened, relief and warmth filling her. For the first time since her ship had been destroyed, she felt not fear, but peace. She reached out, and Elias took her hand. Neither of them knew how far her words had already traveled. Neither of them knew that her confession had become a spark, and that the galaxy was about to catch fire. The galaxy had never been so loud. From the grand halls of the Lumerian Dominion to the crowded cantinas of distant trade hubs, the words spread like wildfire. The princess loves a human. The message, once whispered, now roared across systems. Ambassadors argued, soldiers froze mid-march, and merchants paused their work, stunned by the audacity of a bond no empire had ever expected. For some, it was scandal. How could a princess, heir to the throne of one of the galaxy's greatest powers, declare love for a species still considered a minor player? Others saw it as a threat. If humans gained favor with royalty, alliances would crumble and centuries of power could shift in an instant. Yet amid the anger and confusion, some voices were quietly curious. Humanity, long underestimated, suddenly appeared capable of courage, loyalty, and, most shocking of all, honor. Aboard the Vigilant, Elias and Kyalira watched the stars drift by, unaware of the storm raging around them. Kyalira had spoken her truth. The words had left the safety of their small ship, carried on signals she did not know existed, and now the galaxy buzzed with debate. Elias was tense. "They'll come for us," he said, hands tightening on the controls. "Not just assassins, this time. Fleets. Entire fleets." Kyalira's eyes were steady. "Let them come. I will not deny what I feel. You have saved me, and I will not pretend otherwise. If the galaxy is shocked, let it be shocked." Her words left him speechless. The princess, heir to one of the galaxy's most powerful empires, refused to bow to fear. Elias had faced danger before, but nothing compared to the courage she now displayed Far across the Lumerian dominion, the High Council convened. The chamber buzzed with anger and disbelief. "The princess has declared love for a human," one counselor shouted. "This is an insult to our people, to the throne, and to our traditions." Another counselor sneered. "It is worse than insult. It is a threat. If word spreads, our enemies will see weakness. Humans will think they are equals." Outside the chamber, citizens whispered in alleys and marketplaces. Young soldiers shared rumors in secret, and students debated the human who had dared to defy expectation. To many, he was a fool, but to some, he was a hero. Across star systems, intelligence networks worked furiously, attempting to track Elias and the Vigilant. The transmissions had revealed too much. Too many eyes now watched their every move. In a smoky spaceport on the edge of a neutral system, smugglers and traders debated the meaning of it all. "Humans?" one barked. "They're just children with ships." "Not anymore," replied another, leaning closer. "If one can survive raiders, assassins, and still protect a princess, maybe there's something else entirely." The word spread like rumor through every trading hub, and soon humans everywhere began to hear stories of bravery and honor. Suddenly, humans were no longer weak. They were remarkable. Back on the Vigilant, Kalira and Elias faced their next challenge. Assassins would come again, this time with full knowledge of their location. Rival factions would send spies and agents to test the limits of their strength. Every alliance the princess had once taken for granted now hung in the balance. Yet Kalira remained calm. "Let them try," she said, her voice resolute. "If fleets come for us, they will see what humans can do. And they will know that courage is not limited by species." Elias allowed himself a small smile. "You've got a lot of faith in my kind." Kalira met his gaze. "Faith? No. It is certainty. I have seen what you can do. I have seen your choices. And now, I believe in humanity, through you." Her words struck him harder than any enemy attack ever could. Humans had always been underestimated, dismissed as weak or naive. Yet here, in her eyes, he saw admiration, respect, and trust. News of Kalira's confession reached rival empires as well. Some were outraged, sending fleets to intercept the Vigilant. Others hesitated, curious to see if a human could truly protect a princess and challenge centuries of galactic tradition. The galaxy had begun to ask a question it had never asked before. Could humans, small, fledgling, and underestimated, stand against the greatest powers in the universe? And slowly, quietly, hope began to spread. Among young soldiers, explorers, and colonists, tales of Elias's bravery became legend. Parents told their children of the human who faced death to protect a princess. Leaders reconsidered their strategies, now cautious of a species previously thought unimportant. The galaxy's perception of humanity was shifting, one whispered story at a time. Inside the Vigilant, the bond between Elias and Kalira strengthened. "We will survive," she said softly. "And when we do, the galaxy will remember this moment. Not because I am a princess, not because you are a human, but because courage and honesty know no limits." Elias nodded. "Then let's make sure they remember it well." For the first time, they both understood that their journey was no longer private. Their actions, their choices, and now their bond had become a symbol, a statement that humanity was not to be ignored. And somewhere deep in the stars, a galaxy-wide conversation had begun. Some whispered in fear, some whispered in hope. All whispered about the human who had saved a princess and the princess who dared to declare her heart. The galaxy had reacted, and the reaction would only grow stronger, because humans, it seemed, were no longer just observers. They were players and Elias Ward, for better or worse, had just made the entire galaxy take notice. The Vigilant streaked through the void, its hull scarred and dented from the battles that had come before. Elias Ward gripped the controls with steady hands, his mind sharp despite exhaustion. Beside him, Princess Kalira watched the stars. Her silver glow faint in the dim cabin light. They both knew this would be their greatest challenge yet. Every fleet that could hunt them was now aware of the human who had saved a princess. Entire empires had taken notice, and word had spread so far that even distant systems speculated about the audacity of one lone human defying centuries of galactic tradition. "Are you ready?" Elias asked quietly. Kalira's eyes met his. "I have never been more ready in my life. The galaxy has made its choice. Now it is our turn." Outside, warships of alien empires formed a blockade, determined to intercept the Vigilant before it could escape to neutral space. The fleets were vast, powerful, and well-trained, each vessel bristling with energy cannons and fighter escorts. To any other pilot, the odds would be hopeless. Elias leaned back, a small grin on his face. "Hope they like surprises?" With a flick of switches and a deep inhale, the Vigilant danced into the fray. Its small size made it nimble, allowing Elias to weave between massive cruisers and dodge laser fire that would have destroyed a larger ship. He guided Kalira's gaze toward the chaos outside. "They'll underestimate us," he said. "That's their first mistake." Kalira's hands clenched around the edge of her seat. "And what's the second?" Elias's grin widened. "They'll underestimate humans." The battle began in earnest. Raiders swooped down from the flanks, fighters darting like angry wasps. The Vigilant twisted, flipped, and dove through asteroid debris, turning the environment into a weapon. Elias triggered energy bursts that mimicked larger ships, creating false targets and confusing the enemy. Inside, Kalira marveled at his ingenuity. Every move was calculated yet flexible. Every maneuver risked disaster, but Elias thrived in danger. To her, it was unlike anything she had ever seen. Humans were underestimated, not because they were weak, but because their creativity and resilience made them unpredictable. The enemy commanders quickly realized that tactics alone could not stop him. Every attack they launched was countered by human ingenuity, traps, and sheer audacity. The fleets faltered, unsure how to engage a ship that moved like a shadow, struck like lightning, and vanished before retaliation. Kalira reached out, touching his arm. "Your people, they must be proud of you." Elias shook his head. "They don't know me. And even if they did, I'm not doing this for them." "Then why?" she asked softly. Elias looked at her, his expression sincere. "Because you needed someone to fight for you, and because humans, we don't leave people behind." Her heart swelled. The galaxy had labeled humans as small, inexperienced, and fragile, yet here was proof to the contrary. Courage, kindness, and determination were not measured by size or fleet. They were measured by choices, and Elias had made every right one. Hours passed, yet the human and the princess continued their desperate dance through the blockade. Finally, Elias executed a bold maneuver. He guided the Vigilant through a narrow gap between two massive cruisers, using their energy shields as cover. The enemy, expecting a direct confrontation, was caught completely off guard. The Vigilant slipped past, free into neutral space. The fleets could only watch, stunned, as the tiny human ship vanished into the stars. Kalira exhaled a long breath. "You did it," she whispered. Elias's shoulders relaxed slightly. "We did it, together." News of their escape spread faster than the initial whispers. Humans were no longer seen as minor players in the galaxy. One human had faced impossible odds, protected royalty, and outmaneuvered entire fleets. The story traveled to every corner. The human who saved the princess and defied empires. And now, Kalara made her choice public. She appeared before the Galactic Council, her presence commanding attention. Standing beside her was Elias, small and simple in appearance, yet unshakable in presence. "I speak the truth," Kalara declared. "Elias Ward saved my life, and I choose to stand with him, not because he is human, but because he embodies courage, honor, and the spirit of hope. The galaxy may fear us, but it will also see what humans can achieve." Gasps filled the chamber. Some leaders shook with anger, others whispered in awe, but no one could ignore the truth. Humanity, once underestimated, had proven itself. Elias stayed quiet, observing her strength. He had never sought fame or recognition, yet here, the galaxy watched him with a new respect. What mattered most, however, was the bond between him and Kalara. In the quiet moments after the speech, she took his hand. "Thank you," she said softly, "for saving me and for showing the galaxy what humans can be." He squeezed her hand. In return, no one else could have done it. And the galaxy, they'll remember whether they like it or not. Kalara smiled, a soft, radiant glow in her eyes. For the first time since her ordeal began, she felt at peace. She had chosen love and courage over fear, and the galaxy had taken notice. As the stars stretched endlessly ahead, the legend of Elias Ward began to grow. In the markets, spaceports, and colonies of distant worlds, humans spoke of the daring scout who had saved a princess, outsmarted fleets, and turned a single act of courage into hope for an entire species. For the first time, humanity was no longer an underdog. Humanity had become a legend, and somewhere deep in the galaxy, a princess smiled beside her human savior, knowing that together they had changed the course of history forever.